Okay, now we're going to continue. We still have the same story on the left-hand side, A Few New Neighbors by Carrie McGee. We're on question 3. Read the sentence from the passage. A jumble of sticks and grass struck out from the middle of the wreath. What does the word jumble most likely mean? Let's highlight that word jumble. Use the highlighter, jumble. A jumble of sticks and grass stuck out of the middle of the wreath. A jumble. What does jumble most likely mean? Well, what we can do is we can take these terms and put them back into the sentence to try to make sense of it. A jumble of sticks, a tall pile of items of sticks and grass stuck out of the middle of the wreath. A neat pile of items, a small group of items, a messy group of items. A jumble of sticks. And see what they're describing here is the wreath, is the nest in the wreath. If we recall in the story, this is where this sentence is taken from. So let's cross off the ones we don't think would work. A tall pile of items, that doesn't really make sense. A neat pile of items. Now, most of us have seen bird nests before. They're usually not really neat. They usually are round and circled, though, and have a bowl-shaped. But the word jumble, when I hear the word jumble, I think of things mixed up. So a neat would not work. A small group of items. No, it's a jumble of sticks. So it's a messy group of items, I think, is our best choice. So we're going to pick a messy group of items and go on to the next question. Now, once again, our story is the same on the left, and we could go back and reread the story if we wanted to, if we have trouble remembering. Remember, one of the best reading strategies is to reread something that is difficult. In fact, if you don't get it the first time, second time, you could even read it a third time, or you can go back and find information. I think the highlighter will even let me highlight things in the story if I wanted to highlight certain areas. But let's get our pointer, and let's come over here. Let's clear that out. Clear that real quick. Here's the question. What inference? Inference is a big word. It is a third grade word. What inference can be made about the author's message about animals? Include information from the passage to support your answer. They actually want us to type something. So we're going to click here, and it's going to let us type. Remember, we determined that one of the main ideas in the message of the story was about animals should be protected. So we could start off by saying animals should be protected. And we can live with animals safely, maybe. Now we're already coming to a conclusion or an introductory thing for our little paragraph here. But we want to include in this story, or in this little essay or paragraph writing, include information from the passage. Jesse, what did Jesse notice? Jesse noticed birds building a nest in the wreath on a door of a house. And that is right from the story. Now, boys and girls, I can type pretty quickly, and I know your keyboarding may not be as quick as mine, and that's okay. It's just going to take you a little while to get the work done. So take your time and use your keyboarding skills the best you can. And if you look at the screen, you can see the words forming as you're typing the letters on the screen. The more of you that have worked on your keyboarding skills, this will be a little easier for you. But everybody can get words typed in. Animals should be protected, and we can live with animals safely. Jesse noticed birds building not a nest, but a nest. I messed up there. Nest in the wreath on the door of a house. There were movers that were going to move things from the house. They would use the door where the bird's nest was found. There were babies in the nest. Jesse, what did Jesse do? What did Jesse do? If we go back over here and we scroll down in the story, And we could have, when we got to this question, we could have reread the whole story to really do a good job with this story. On one of the movers was peering into the wreath. We recall that there are babies in there. He grinned at Jessie. Let's see, and whenever what we're looking for. You can't use this door, Jessie said, holding her arms out stiff. I'm sorry, one of the movers said. We have a job to do. So there were babies in the nest. Jessie boldly, now I'm putting a describing word in, she was very bold, wasn't she? Jessie boldly told the movers they could not use the door. She was protecting the baby birds. Okay, and that's something that she did. She boldly says, you can't use this door. She held her arm out. And then she came up with an idea. She came up with an idea to protect the birds. Now, how did she protect the birds? Let's come back over here, get our line guide here, and let's see. On the movers were peering in the reef. There were babies in there. The movers agreed that there were babies there. Jessie smiled as she and Dad thanked the movers for their help. Then she disappeared into the house. Let's see here. We got to go back up here. Right here. As carefully as she could, Jessie unlocked the front door and eased it open. Then it was just wide enough to slip through. She ducked into Mrs. Baxter's house. She'd been there many times, so it didn't take her long to find the side door and unlock it from the inside. So what she did was she allowed them to use the side door. Got it. Jessie called, running around to the front of the house. The side door is open. Jessie came up with an idea. Now back over here. Her idea was she unlocked the side door so the movers would not disturb the bird nest. Okay. Now we have a nice little paragraph written. It says, what inference can be made about the author's message about animals? Include information from the passage to support your answer. Animals should be protected and we can live with animals safely. Now see, that's my opening sentence is really like what we call an inference. We could have put this inference statement at the bottom rather than at the very beginning, because I started with an inference. And see, then I list out some of the important things that kind of helps me understand. That's why the author wrote the story. It is an interesting story, but there's a little message there for us. And so this is my story, and we're ready to move on to the next one. And once again, we still have another question about the story that we've read, A Few New Neighbors. Why is including, let's get this here, why is including dialogue important to understand the passage? Pick 3 choices. They want me to pick 3 of these things down here as important for using dialogue. Now let's go over here. Let's get my crosshairs. I'm going to cross off answers. I want to keep 3. I have to understand what dialogue is. And boys and girls, dialogue is when people talk in a story and there's quotation marks, or it's telling us when a certain person says something to someone else. On this story over here, there are some quotation marks. Guess who moved into your old wreath? Quotation marks. Mr. Back. Jessie ran home to call Mrs. Baxter. Guess Jessie said this. A family of birds. Those are the exact words that the characters of the story said, and that's dialogue, people exchanging ideas. So, what are 3 reasons why? Pick 3 choices. It helps the reader understand Jessie's actions. I think that would work. It helps the reader imagine the sounds made by the birds. I don't know if that one works. I'm going to put an X on that one. It helps the reader know the reasons why Mrs. Baxter moved. That's probably maybe a good answer. It helps the reader know how the movers feel about the birds. Oh, I do recall down there, the movers, they did recognize there were baby birds there, and the man said that, so that would be a good one. It helps the reader imagine that Jessie will do what Jessie will do after the movers leave. I can't imagine that Jessie probably would protect those birds in that nest, so that's probably a good one. It helps the reader understand Mrs. Baxter and Jessie's interest in the birds. I think that's definitely one. Let's get our selection tool. Let's pick this one. It helps the readers understand. So once again, to figure this out, you have to think about the story, the content of the story, what is dialogue, and the importance of using dialogue in the passage. Does the dialogue help us understand Jessie's action? Yes. It helps the reader know the reasons why Mrs. Baxter moved. We don't know the reason why Mrs. Baxter moved, I don't think, from the story. It helps the reader know how the movers feel about the birds. We do know how down in here a little further, right towards the bottom here, one of the movers was peering into the wreath. "Hey," he said, "there are babies in there." He grinned at Jessie. "I bet that mama bird is glad you're watching out for her babies." That there is dialogue that helps us understand how the movers feel. So we have pick three choices, so we could go ahead. We don't have to mark off the other ones, because once we've indicated three answers, then we're done. Hopefully those are the best three. Going on. And we have another question we're on question 6. We're still in this story about a few new neighbors. So here we go. Read the sentence from the passage. As carefully as she could, Jessie unlocked the front door and eased it open. Now notice here, they have this underlined, eased it open. That's a little phrase, eased it open. And the question is, what does the phrase, eased it open, tell the reader about Jessie? What does it help us understand about Jessie? That Jessie is quiet and shy, that Jessie is able to unlock the door, Jessie is nervous to enter the house, Jessie is a gentle and thoughtful person. Why is she easing it open? Because the wreath is on the door and the baby birds are in the nest in the wreath. And so that kind of, which one would fit the best? And we look down through here and we notice this one here. Jessie is gentle and a thoughtful person. She's very gentle about opening that door. She's thoughtful about the baby birds in the nest. This is our best answer, I do believe. Let's click to go on to the next one. Now we have a new story for us to read at this time. Okay, we have we're on question 7. I'm going to turn line guide on. It says, read the passage and answer the question. What's that in your backpack? By Mona Peace. Are you carrying a forest on your back? Of course not. But if you dig through your backpack, you will probably find many things that come from the forest. You might have books, pencils, and even a sweet candy treat, all from the forest. Is your backpack feeling heavier yet? Let's explore some of these things and see how they get from the woods to your backpack. Let's start with paper. Paper making begins in the forest where trees are marked to be cut down. Boys and girls, this is obviously an information story. I'm going to pause for just a second. Move this down here. So paper making begins in the forest where trees are marked to be cut down. Once the trees are cut, the biggest branches are removed. The logs, as they are now called, are stacked in huge piles at the edge of the forest. A logging truck takes them to the paper mill. At the mill, the logs go through many steps to be made into paper. After the bark is removed, the wood is chipped, then cooked with chemicals. Now this word, I know it to be chemicals. If this was a new word for you, sound it out the best you can and try to figure out what it would mean by how it's used in the sentence. Then cooked with chemicals. This turns the wood into a mushy pulp. Next, the pulp is washed, bleached, and drained. Then it is sprayed onto big screens to dry. The finished sheets of paper are put onto a giant roll. Some of these rolls of paper weigh as much as 50,000 pounds. Finally, the paper is lined, cut, or folded for people to use. Let's check back in that backpack. Your pencils come from the forest too. They are made from the wood of a cedar tree. At the pencil factory, cedar logs are sawed into chunky blocks, then sliced to make flat slats. Next, narrow grooves are cut into the slats to hold the graphite, which is the lead part you write with. After the graphite is set in places, 2 slats are glued together, sandwiching the graphite inside. I've got to scroll down again. Then the pencils are cut and painted. Finally, the eraser is added. Now, what about that special treat you have? Yum, maple sugar candy made from the sap of sugar maple trees. Well, let's read this last